Hello and welcome back to the TV studio here in Vienna, and welcome to Digging Deeper, a new, exciting, innovative format where we're looking at important socio-political issues in the medical context. And I'm really excited for this session. I've been having great fun with our panelists, but also their expertise in this particular subject is very interesting because we're talking about AI and whether or not we're going to get to a place where AI can make medical decisions for the clinician. So let me introduce our panel. They are Cesare Hassan, Pratik Sharma, who are both professors in endoscopy, and Federico Kubica, who is a professor in the field of AI in engineering. You're all very welcome. So I think we're going to be looking at the multiple facets of AI across the medical spectrum, and I'm really interested to see where we stand in this. So let's start off talking about these plug-in AI devices. So for polyp or a Barrett characterization, you can buy these things very easily on the market. Do I need to know anything about this, or can I just plug it in and go?
Jonathan, is not like a PlayStation, okay? So this is a medical device that must do some specific task, etc. So the problem is that I'm not an engineer, so I cannot understand anything about these people do this algorithm. But I know the concept. I mean, you annotate some lesion, and with this annotated lesion, you train the system. And then the system is trained to detect what it was trained for. So you cannot ask a system that was not trained for something to detect something. So my guess is that the physician should know at least what the system was trained for. So if this system was trained for polyp, you should not use for Barrett. If it was used for diminutive lesion, you can expect to find big polyp. So this is my view, what the clinician should know. I don't know about this.
I think the clinician should probably know a little bit more than what Cesare said. You need to, just as his example of the PlayStation, right? You want to know what's the size, right? Will your current system be able to support it or not? How fast is it? What's the lag time? Things like that. But more importantly, you need to know what patient population the system was trained for. So if it's a system which is developed in an Asian country, and you're trying to apply it to the US or the European population, it's probably not the right thing to do. So I think you need to get a little bit more into detail about it. Treat this just almost like a new drug which is out on the market. You want to know not just what the efficacy is, but if the trial was conducted, what was the patient population, what were their demographics, what sort of a disease did they have. So I think we need to almost look at this as a new drug on the market, and then does it apply to your patient population or not?
If you have questions for our panel, I should have mentioned, please do send them in through the Q&A tool, and we'll get to as many of those as possible. So use the platform to ask your questions to our panel. Federico, talk to me about the way these AI systems are designed. How ready to go are they?
Well, since I'm an engineer, I would say that if they are called plug-in AI devices, they should be used just by plugging in them. But actually, if I wanted to be more serious about that, I would say that I would subscribe to what they told us about the reliability of these systems. And I would also say that the introduction of any artificial intelligence systems in any professional practice, and in medical practice is even more important, entails a sort of reskilling process. It's like, I would dare to say that it's also an awareness promotion process for a responsible and informed use of the system. And I'm not speaking only of the safety measures about the system, but also of knowledge about the system reliability. So in my opinion, the endoscopist should be informed of the discrimination performance of the system on the test set, and possibly on external data, as it was said, and also have an idea of how the ground truth was collected, and any other additional information that could be useful to understand the actual reliability of the system, like the modalities that were used to collect the training data, how the ground truth was produced, by how many raters, or according to any gold standard, so that the endoscopist can also have an idea of how the accuracy scores that go with the systems vendors put on the market could be translated in robustness estimates, and so to be more informed about how to use the system.
I guess Federico is very good. I'm not confident that any endoscopist will ever understand all of this, but probably for the young trainee who get now in specialization, they should become aware of all of the validation factor of a system. Okay, Jonathan, go on.
That was the question I was going to ask. Is that a lot to ask of an endoscopist to fully understand all? If you say, here's this plug and play AI, aren't people just going to take that as word, or are they going to investigate all of the information that you've explored? I mean, do you look at all the different data sets and rigorously investigate your AI tool?
Jonathan, we must be honest. An endoscopy has 1,000 things to do, okay? So the easiest thing is to plug in and to run. So this is the role of the scientific society. This will be done also together with the company. We should inform extensively the clinician before he jump on it. I have seen really catastrophic error in bad use of this system. I've seen endoscopists using the system with diminutive polyp, trying to guess whether there was a cancer on a very big polyp. It's not completely ridiculous.
Right.
Okay? Yeah. So I feel that we need. No, it was not me. It was not me. Don't worry.
Right.
So we need to change our mindset.
You know,
okay?
so just the focus is on quality in endoscopy. So I think the question you're asking is absolutely right. Is we shouldn't just trust every plug and play device, right? You need to ask those difficult questions, and we have to train. I mean, as Cesare mentioned, you start with the younger generation of people. But I think it's on every endoscopist who decides to buy, lease, rent, steal, whatever this plug-and-play device, to actually know what it is about.
Yeah.
It's just like you would not prescribe a drug without knowing what are the side effects. What's the efficacy of the drug? Is this the correct patient to use it in? Similarly, we may be all busy, but I think we do have to take time out and figure out all these things. And I think all the GI societies are working on these sorts of documents as to what are the things that a physician or an endoscopist should look at before using this on their patient.
What Pratik is trying to explain, because maybe it's a bit vague, is that the risk, as usual, is not in the machine. The machine is already too good. These people are doing an excellent job. The risk is always in the human. Nobody can think that since there is a machine close to me, by definition, I am a good endoscopist. This is an error. Actually, it cannot be excluded. There could also be a worse endoscopist. Okay.
So Cesare, thank you for repeating what I just said. But
I try to say
please.
5 words,
I knew there was going to be
you
trouble
take it
in
a very
this
long
session.
way.
Yeah, exactly.
Federico,
Yeah.
once the endoscopist gets their hand on an AI system like this, it's giving good results. They become more dependent and more reliant on it. Is there a danger that endoscopists, not these two obviously, but some endoscopists might get a little bit lazy, a little bit over-reliant, and forget about the training that they went through to be able to identify these problems themselves?
Yes, AI is designed to be useful. And to be useful, it has to positively influence how doctors think. It has to improve their decisions.
Yeah.
So there are two main effects that are designed into AI to occur on professional procedural knowledge. The first one occurs on the level of the single decision, and it is called automation bias. And this effect occurs when the machine is wrong, but the doctor trusts the machine. So the machine misleads the doctor in the wrong decision. And this can happen on the very complex cases where doctors need the machine more, because otherwise they would do even without the machine. And then there is a longer effect that is called the skilling, as you rightly mentioned. That is when the decision maker, in this case the endoscopist, relies too much on the machine, and so their knowledge degrade over time, maybe in an unperceivable way, imperceptible way, but it does over in the long run. So for this to be mitigated, for this risk to be mitigated, in my opinion, it's very important to to make endoscopists aware of this risk without obviously having them panic about that.
Yeah.
Because it's up to them not to rely too much or always be engaged in an informed decision by not taking for granted what the machine tells them.
So this is very important, Jonathan, because today this system detects a lesion, but you're still expected to expose the mucosa when you do a colonoscopy. So the risk is that since you over-rely on the fact that this system detects the lesion, you can unconsciously over-rely also on the fact that you are already good in exposing the mucosa. So instead of being very careful, since you have this system, you do like this because you are overconfident, okay, this machine anyway would detect anything. So the risk of false confidence, I don't know if you can call de-skilling or because I'm not de-skilled, but I'm just a bit more relaxed when I do my endoscopy, is there. And there is some rumor that this can happen. So it is the duty of a scientific society to put some rules. For instance, the withdrawal time, that is a proxy of the quality of colonoscopy, cannot be reduced because you have a plug-in, you can play with that system, okay? And also what you do, etc. So it is important that we reinforce that the quality of the procedure should not be affected by our over-reliance. Like when you drive and you have this self-system, I don't know, he has the Tesla because he's American. So you don't need to over-rely on this system because you could have an accident, very dangerous.
Yeah, so I think
there's
also one additional or an extreme end to it, which is that endoscopists can get better by doing this, right? And we do have some evidence. So for example, first, when this virtual chromoendoscopy thing was introduced, such as narrowband imaging or blue light imaging and stuff, what happened is that the studies showed that they improved the adenoma or the polyp detection rate, but not by that much.
Yeah.
But what they were able to show that after the physicians or the endoscopists started using this virtual chromoendoscopy techniques, they actually got better with white light endoscopy because they started looking at smaller lesions which they were not used to looking at earlier. So I think on one side is this whole concept that this may make us worse, but I think the contrary could be true as well, in which maybe this will all make us better endoscopists, that we get tuned to looking at lesions which we were not looking at before.
So you're suggesting that the machine-learned AI is actually now machine learning the humans as well?
Well, I mean, I think that's the impact that you can have.
Yeah.
It's all human behavior at the end. There's good data to suggest that the endoscopist at their first case of the morning to the last case of the evening, fatigue sets in, right?
Okay.
That's one advantage which this may have over it, in which the fatigue factor, the human factor is out. So I think they're wide spectrum.
Yeah.
I would say it hasn't been evaluated enough for us to make a judgment today that is it making us bad or is it making us worse?
Okay, I want to move on because I want to see where we're going in the future. And Federico, you might be the best person for this. We know AI for endoscopy is good, but it's not 100%. Is it possible in the future that we would build AI that was self-learning, that it wouldn't need to be trained itself, it would identify the problems it's making and then continue? Is that so far away?
No, it is not. It is a good idea. It's called continual learning and involves a sort of active involvement of the operator, of the user, the so-called human-in-the-loop process. However, this poses also serious concerns about the certification of the product. Because if you want the system improve over time, even autonomously, you have a product that could change and you don't know exactly in which way. I mean, you can hope it will increase the accuracy, but you don't know if, for example, he could begin
it could be trained by a bad endoscopist.
Yeah, also. Yeah. But it could also, it is called forgetting. It could forget how to make the right decision on some types of cases while improving on other types of cases. Right. So it's something that must be addressed by the certification bodies, because at least at the European level, this would go against the medical device regulation.
Right, because it's been certified that it does this, and if you start changing that AI, then you have problem. Pratik.
So I mean, obviously, I wouldn't have Cesare train it, because then it may go worse. But I think the concept is, again, in the US, it's the same thing. It's a locked device. So it's been certified to do something. based on the data that was presented to the regulatory authorities, and that's locked in there. So I think we are very, very far away from in which the regulatory bodies will say, okay, let's just have it keep training itself, retraining itself, and let's see what we do, because we really don't know where we'll end up going with that.
What about
stop.
you, Cesare? Like,
No,
top
Jonathan,
endoscopists, do
stop.
you want to train that AI?
Yes, of course. Because today I'm very disappointed. Because, for instance, the system misses a polyp, a stupid polyp, okay? And I feel disappointed. Then the next day, there is the same polyp. And the system again misses that polyp. So I feel all of it is a waste of opportunity. Because I could tell the machine, oh, look, please, there is a polyp. At least tomorrow, please do it for me. So, practice say it is a lock, of course, there's a lot of certification, blah, blah, blah. But I feel all of this is very stupid, that we cannot teach our machine how to improve. We need to wait for 1 year that people come back with a new version, etc. But all of that year has been wasted.
Yeah.
And this is, in my view, when the society is against human patients.
When you're doing the imaging of in your endoscopy, afterwards, when you know the problem there, is there an opportunity to upload and train that AI at the moment? There isn't.
No, so it's right. That's it. It's a locked unit. It can't happen. I think one of the reasons I say that this is far away is because the concept is that it's an assist device, and the physician's right there. So the physician is there for making a decision. I think in areas of medicine where it's an outreach program, which endoscopy isn't because a physician is performing it, I think in those areas, perhaps that concept will come true. But again, would we all like it? Yes, but I think the regulatory issues as well as those issues will, I think, prevent it from happening.
Can I add? Maybe we should think that AI is a sort of a shift from the way in which we were used to thinking about medical devices, that they were product, and a new way of thinking of medical devices that are part of a process, of a decision-making process. So maybe we should certificate the process in which those systems are trained and are validated instead of the product with a label on and that is marketed in the usual way.
Also because, Jonathan, to be honest, the true difference between each machine and myself is that each machine has infinite chance of training. Myself is done.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm 52. I cannot learn anything more. So
That's just him, not us. Huh? We can still learn.
okay,
that's
Pratik
just it.
stopped something like 10 years ago. But the real advantage of the machine is that it is infinite chance of training. And this is why it is stupid to compete with a machine. You cannot compete. You need to be complementary. You need to use. But all those endoscopes you plug in and I want to show that I'm better than the machine. You can do it now, but you cannot do it in 10, 20, or 50 years.
Well, your questions, please, using the Q&A function. And we'd love to hear questions from you in the assembled audience. Use the Q&A function, please, if you have any questions for our audience. I suppose you brought us very nicely to our final question, which is, all right, at what stage are we going to see medical decisions being made without the endoscopist? And is that a day that endoscopists should fear?
Yeah, this is a risk for everyone, Jonathan. Maybe in 10 years, you will be an AI machine, I will be an AI machine, all of us will be replaced by AI machines. It will be AI machine talking each other.
No people here.
Yeah, no people here. Talking seriously, the interaction between the human and the machine that has been recently addressed by Andrea Cherubini is very unique. Because, for instance, the machine is correct, the man is wrong, but the man remains in the idea that he's right and the machine is wrong. So we need to analyze deeply, and this is the name, dig deep. We need to analyze deeply this interaction between human and machine. Because if this interaction is detrimental to the output of the machine, we need to admit that we need an autonomous diagnosis by the machine. And this is the case especially of characterization. Okay?
Right.
But this will have a lot of ethical, legal, and society implications. But I would say before going there, let's explore better how we interact with the machine, if we can influence this process, etc. But probably Federico wants to add over it.
Federico,
Yeah. Obviously, there is a big difference between AI-assisted and fully autonomous diagnosis. But rather than a difference, this is obvious, I would speak of a tension. There are tensions like between augmentation and replacement, or between the goals of efficiency and accountability and liability that must be at the human side for a long time. But the important thing, in my opinion, is that we have to understand the integration of artificial intelligence into medical practice, not as a matter of black and white or all or nothing. It's a matter of levels of autonomy. It's a matter of phases of the task to be automated. For instance, I consider an open question, a very interesting research question also, whether endoscopists prefer to automate the navigation on the endoscope or the task of detection and characterization. As a layperson, I'm curious to know.
You really want to replace us with the machine, Federico, but I have a family, I have 3 kids, please.
What they want to
I
automate.
still need to work, please.
Good question. Good question. Would you be happy with that?
Navigation?
No. So I think what he's talking about, which I agree with him. So it's always good to have Cesare because it's one extreme, right? I mean, it's like out there in outer space, which nobody cares about, right? So we need to have a little bit of moderation. So, machines like what Cesare is saying, remember, I mean, they're not God. They're not 100% accurate either. And also remember, the machines are being trained. And who are training them? It's humans who are training them. It's not by magic that it's a Marvel story that all of a sudden there's thunder and lightning and you get this machine out of there. So what's key for the future is this human-AI interaction. I think we will have to work together to become good endoscopists, good physicians, with the machine assisting us. I don't think it's ever going to replace us. There are human factors, there are socioeconomic factors, there's demographic factors, race factors, everything associated with taking care of a patient. So I don't see any way how they're going to be replacing physicians.
So I was talking with our panel before this, and I was really interested in when we look at certain diseases and certain conditions, obviously, ethnic background and genes come into it. When I thought a polyp is a polyp, but you were saying to me that a polyp is not a polyp, that when we're screening, we need to take in all of these factors. Can you explain why? And maybe Federico?
Yeah, so I mean, a good example is about pulse oximetry. I mean, there was a good study done in the US in which they trained a pulse oximeter to automatically read and then trigger off some alarms. What they figured out was that the way it was trained was data based on Caucasian patients. And it couldn't detect it from the skin of a darker skinned person, right? So, I mean, that tells you that there are huge biases in how these machines could be trained. And therefore, I think it's important for us to recognize that there could be biases in there.
I would like to add something that Pratik forgot. Human physicians are the first to have introduced a lot of discriminative, unconscious bias in human medicine. So we cannot pretend now that machines do not have any bias. Of course, we need to take them into account. But it is very likely the bias of the machine may be mitigated as compared with the bias of a human physician.
Federico, what sort of differences do you see? Because I'm not a doctor, but don't we all look the same on the inside?
Yeah, it also depends on the fact that these new generation of AI systems are not based on knowledge, on rules that can be expressed in a formal way by some expert. They are based on statistical correlations. So that's why sometimes they are biased, because they are very good in taking the confounders that can be hiding in the data. So we need a very representative data of the population, of the target population. This is not easy at all, because you usually train a system with a limited amount of data.
And Jonathan, I think what you were talking about is the polyp is a polyp on the inside, but let's say you have a plug-and-play device or a machine or an AI algorithm which is trained on ethnicity A. That ethnicity A may not have any flat polyps. they may have only big polyps and pedunculated polyps. So
Right.
now you have a machine which is trained only on that. You apply that to ethnicity B, which has flat polyps, the machine won't recognize it.
Right.
Because it isn't trained to do that, right? So I think there are these huge biases, and that's why, going back to your first question, endoscopists, anybody using this should know what's the characteristic of the training set, what's the characteristic of the testing set, and the validation
That
set.
It
I
can't
think
be
is
a black
important.
box.
Yeah, exactly.
That exactly was I was referring to when I was answering to the first question. The endoscopist do not need to know everything about the technical side of the machine, but at least they should know about the training data.
Right. There's a good question here from Carolina Matsubayashi. Thanks for joining us, Carolina. She says, considering that behavior are different between cultures and then the incentive of healthcare systems, will we probably have same products with different interfaces between cultures? So that's an interesting question. You know, the same tool, but is it presented in a different way because of the culture of a hospital or indeed the culture of a country?
Yeah. So we are speaking of how to introduce the system in the population of potential users. Yes.
Yeah.
I think this is a psychological side that has to be considered. It's a culture thing. And I think also that we could change a little bit also the interface according to the profile of the potential user in terms of attitudes, expertise, or expectations. For example, I don't think that the system should look the same to novices and to experts or to subspecialists according to the specialty they belong to.
Okay, so the final word
guess,
then, Cesar.
Jonathan, I guess that anyway, wherever we are, US, Europe, etc., what we want is that this device increases our productivity, increases our efficiency. We don't want to waste time on a false positive. We don't want to make an excessive rate. So I guess that wherever you are, this machine must get into your productivity and not the opposite. It's not us who need to do the big effort to implement them. If not, we stop using them.
Yeah.
Endoscopy is full of technology that can never be used because they somewhat hampered the productivity of your exam.
So that interface, how the endoscopist uses the AI, its ability to rely on it and its ability to rely on the results is huge. So really interesting space and lots of things to work on. I've had great fun. Thank you so much to our panel, and thank you for watching. We have 2 more Digging Deeper sessions, one on Monday, one on Tuesday. They're at 12 o'clock. Opening 2 is at 6 p.m. in Hall A78. Do join us for that. And if you are around online, do visit the Congress platform. Take part in the treasure hunt. There's great prizes to be won. And don't forget to explore the MyUEG community area where you can interact with other researchers and explore how to network with your fellow colleagues here in UEG. Guys, thanks very much.
Thanks, Jonathan. Bye.
We'll see you soon.